In something older, it becomes an event. You park a classic Mini or an old Mercedes, and suddenly strangers want to talk to you. People smile. Someone tells you they had one, just like that in 1988, and regrets selling it every day since. Old cars turn errands into stories. They slow you down just enough to notice where you are, what you're doing, and why you bothered leaving the house in the first place. Reason 3. Old cars teach you useful life skills, patience, listening, improvisation, carrying a small but emotionally significant collection of tools. An old Volkswagen or Alfa doesn't break to punish you. It breaks to teach you humility. It encourages you to understand how things work, or at least to develop a healthy relationship with your local mechanic. More importantly, old cars cure you of the illusion that everything should be instant and perfect. They remind you that progress isn't always about speed. Sometimes it's about connection. Now, are old cars practical? Not always. Are they efficient? Rarely. Will they test your optimism at inconvenient moments? Absolutely, but they give you something modern cars can't, a sense of involvement. A feeling that you're part of the process, not just cargo being moved from one place to another. So if you're choosing your next car, maybe don't ask what's fastest, newest, or most sensible. Ask what will make you smile on a quiet road. What will turn a normal day into a small adventure? What will still be interesting long after the novelty wears off? Because life is already efficient enough. Your car doesn't need to be. There's a quiet bond between people who own classic cars. You can spot it almost instantly. It's not about money or performance figures or even good taste, although we like to pretend it is. It's about shared experiences that make absolutely no sense to anyone else. And there are 3 in particular that only classic car owners truly understand. The first is this: the key turn moment. Modern cars start when you ask them to. Classic cars consider it. There's always a pause, a half second, where the engine thinks about its life choices. You turn the key in an old Alfa Romeo or a Triumph, and you listen, not casually, but with the focus of a bomb disposal expert. Is that a healthy crank? Is that a confident cough? Or is that the sound of today being one of those days? Every start is a small emotional journey, and when it fires into life, you feel a completely unreasonable sense of personal achievement. The second thing only classic car owners understand is the relationship you develop with smells and noises. A faint whiff of fuel in a Jaguar, that's character. A new rattle in an old Porsche, that's a conversation starter. You stop thinking in terms of is something wrong, and start thinking in terms of is this noise new, louder, or merely expressive. Your car becomes a living thing with moods, habits, and the occasional tantrum. You don't panic, you diagnose, you negotiate, and sometimes you just turn the radio up and promise to look at it later. And then there's the third thing: strangers. Classic cars turn you into a public service. Petrol stations become social events. Someone will always say, I used to have one of those, even when it's a Renault they very clearly never owned. People will tell you about their uncle's MG, their neighbour's Volvo, or the one that got away in 1987. You'll nod, smile, and listen, because you're part of a rolling museum now, whether you like it or not. What's funny is that none of this feels like a burden once you're in it. The quirks, the conversations, the unpredictability, they are the point. Classic car ownership isn't about perfection, it's about participation. You're involved, present, and occasionally late. And that's why classic car owners understand something most people don't. The car isn't just getting you from A to B, it's giving you stories, moments, and a slightly odd but deeply satisfying way of moving through the world. You don't just own a classic car, you enter into an agreement, and somehow, despite everything, you're always happy you did. Owning a British classic car is a bit like living with a polite housemate who smiles warmly, makes excellent tea, and quietly rearranges your life while you're not looking. You think you're in charge, you're not, and if you listen closely, you'll realize your car is plotting against you, not out of malice, but out of tradition. Let's start with the first plot. Number 1, timing. Your British classic has an impeccable sense of when to misbehave. It will never fail on a random Tuesday when you have nothing planned. No, it waits patiently for the exact moment you're heading to a wedding, a long-awaited drive, or somewhere that requires arriving without the scent of petrol and regret. Triumphs, Bristols, old Jaguars, they all share this gift. They'll idle perfectly for weeks, then suddenly decide that today is the day the starter motor feels emotionally unavailable. And the thing is, it won't be dramatic about it. There'll be no bang, no warning light, just silence, as if to say, I'm terribly sorry, but no. The second plot is more subtle. Number 2, confidence erosion. British classics are masters of psychological warfare. One good drive and you feel invincible. You start thinking, I've sorted it now. You tell friends it's actually quite reliable. This is when the car strikes. A minor rattle appears, then a smell, then a noise that wasn't there yesterday and absolutely is there now. Is it serious? Is it nothing? You don't know. That's the point. A Land Rover will convince you that every vibration is either completely normal or the beginning of the end, and you'll never know which. A classic Mini will make you question whether that pull to the left is new or simply part of its personality. You start doubting yourself. The car remains calm. It has done this before. And finally, the most devious plot of all. Number 3, emotional attachment. This is where British classics really get you. Despite everything, the leaks, the quirks, the way a classic Jaguar can turn fuel into noise with astonishing enthusiasm, you fall for it, you forgive it, you defend it. You start using phrases like, they all do that, and it's just a simple fix even though you've said that 6 times already. At some point, you'll catch yourself patting the dashboard of an old Rover or talking gently to an Austin Healey as if encouragement might help. And oddly enough, sometimes it does, or at least it feels like it does. That's when you realize the plot has succeeded. You're no longer an owner, you're a caretaker, possibly an accomplice. But here's the twist. This isn't really sabotage, it's a relationship. British classics don't want efficiency. They don't want speed or convenience. They want attention. They want patience. They want you to slow down, listen, and accept that perfection was never the goal. So yes, your British classic is plotting against you, against your schedule, your certainty, and your spare cash. But it's also plotting for something quieter and better. Fewer rushed journeys, more stories. And the kind of memories you only get from a car that occasionally refuses to cooperate. And honestly, you wouldn't have it any other way. There are many questionable decisions a person can make in life. Buying a British classic car may sit comfortably somewhere between joining a pyramid scheme and cutting your own hair. And yet, if you talk to anyone who actually owns one, they'll tell you it's one of the most rewarding, character-building, occasionally ridiculous choices they've ever made. So today, I want to give you 5 reasons, proper, life-enhancing reasons, why you might need a British classic car in your life. Reason 1, British classics are charmingly imperfect, just like you. A British classic is not afraid to show its quirks. An old MG, for example, will happily reveal its entire emotional landscape through the dashboard. A flickering gauge here, a warning light that comes on only when it feels unappreciated. A Triumph may enthusiastically leak oil, but only because it doesn't believe in bottling up its feelings. And if you ever meet a Jaguar XJ from the 70s, you'll discover a car with the swagger of a rock star and the electrical stability of one too. But here's the magic, their flaws make them lovable. A British classic car teaches you that perfection is overrated. It's the rough edges, the little unpredictabilities that create stories, and in a world obsessed with flawless surfaces and seamless interfaces, there's something deeply comforting about a machine that is still perfectly functional while being gloriously, unapologetically human. Reason 2, they turn every journey into a small adventure. Modern cars make driving feel like background noise. British classics, on the other hand, treat every trip, even a run to the shops, like you're off to scale Everest. Start the engine of a Land Rover Series 2 and you'll feel like you're about to explore a remote corner of Kenya. Even if you're only going to Lidl, take an old Mini onto a back road and suddenly you understand why every motoring journalist becomes slightly hysterical around them. Drive a classic Bentley and you'll find yourself talking in a deeper voice and developing opinions about fine leather. British classics don't simply move you from A to B. They create a sense of occasion. They invite you into the moment, into the sound, the smell, the tactility of driving. They whisper, slow down, enjoy this, notice things. And if you listen, you realize that driving can be joyful again. Reason 3, owning one is joining an oddly supportive secret society. British classic car ownership comes with a built-in community, one that spans from tiny pub gatherings to enthusiastic online forums where grown adults debate the moral purity of different carburetor setups. Buy a classic Mini and you'll suddenly find middle-aged strangers waving at you in car parks. Own a Rover P6 for 6 minutes and someone will walk up to you and say, "My uncle had one of those. Let me tell you everything about it." Starting in 1974, MG owners appear to be born with a sixth sense. They can smell another MG owner from 500 yards away and will materialize beside you with advice, spare parts, or biscuits. It's a hobby, yes, but also a family. The cheerful, slightly eccentric sort, who show up with tools when your car won't start. You don't just buy the car, you inherit the tribe. Reason 4, you learn patience, resilience, and a questionable kind of optimism. A British classic car will teach you important life skills, not CV skills. Not useful in the corporate world skills, but the real fundamentals, patience. When something works yesterday but not today. Resourcefulness when the part you need is out of stock indefinitely. And optimism when you see a puddle under the car and think, it's probably fine. There's a special kind of self-growth that happens when you try to understand 40-year-old Lucas Electrics, often referred to respectfully as the Prince of Darkness, which should tell you everything you need to know, yet somehow you manage, you adapt, you learn the car's language, you celebrate small victories like a monk achieving enlightenment, and over time you realize the car has made you calmer, more patient, and better at shrugging off life's little inconveniences. Reason 5, British classics have personality, real unapologetic character. This is the biggest reason of all. A British classic car isn't just something you use, it's something you get to know. They have moods, preferences, favourite temperatures, and occasionally strong opinions about weather. An old Austin Healey has the cheeky grin of a mischievous teenager. A Jaguar E-Type has the sultry confidence of someone who knows they look incredible from every angle. A Land Rover Defender has the emotional range of a steel anvil, but a heart of gold. These cars are alive in a way that modern machines simply aren't. And because they have character, they give you character. You become the person who doesn't just drive somewhere, you arrive somewhere, accompanied by the sound of an old engine and a light spray of oil mist. People smile at British classic. They start conversations. They bring nostalgia, joy, curiosity, and a tiny splash of chaos. And let's be honest, the world is better with a bit of chaos in it. So why do you need a British classic car? Not because it's sensible, not because it's practical, but because it adds colour to your life. It slows you down, toughens you up, and makes everyday moments feel cinematic. It gives you stories to tell. It connects you to people you never would have met, and it reminds you, gently, persistently, that life doesn't have to be perfect to be wonderful. A British classic car will frustrate you, enchant you, challenge you, and occasionally leave you stranded. But it will also make you smile in a way almost nothing else can, and if that isn't a good reason to own one, I don't know what is. Classic cars attract many wonderful things: admiration, nostalgia, and unsolicited advice from strangers at petrol stations. They also attract myths, persistent, confident myths, the kind delivered by someone who hasn't owned a classic car since 1987, but feels very strongly about it. So let's gently put a few of these to rest. First myth: classic cars are incredibly unreliable. This one usually comes from someone driving a modern car with 3 warning lights on and a software update pending. The truth is, most classic cars are very honest. A classic Mini, a Triumph, or an old Mercedes will tell you exactly what's wrong, often audibly, sometimes aromatically. Modern cars, by contrast, prefer vague threats and cryptic symbols. Reliability isn't about age, it's about maintenance, sympathy, and occasionally accepting that Italian electrics have personality. Second myth: you have to be rich to own one. Yes, if your idea of a classic car starts with air-cooled Porsche and ends with auction estimate, that might be true, but plenty of classics are wonderfully attainable. An old MG, a Rover, even a slightly scruffy BMW from the 90s can be cheaper to run than a modern finance agreement. The real cost isn't money, it's time, patience, and the willingness to Google things like, why does it only do this when it rains? Third myth: classic cars are terrible to drive. This is usually said by someone who expects a 1970s Alfa Romeo to feel like a new Golf GTI. Classic cars don't isolate you, they involve you. You feel the steering, the road, the decisions you've made in life that led you to this moment. And once you recalibrate, many classics are an absolute joy. There's a reason people still talk about how a Porsche 911 feels, or how delicately a well-sorted MG flows down a country road. Next myth: they're just toys for old men. Yes, there are flat caps, but there are also young owners, artists, engineers, and people who simply like things with character. Classic cars aren't about age, they're about taste, and possibly stubbornness. Anyone who keeps a Lancia running in the modern world is not clinging to the past. They're committing an act of quiet rebellion. Another favourite: classic cars are bad for the environment. This one's more nuanced. Yes, they're not exactly carbon neutral, but most classics do a few thousand miles a year at most. They're repaired, reused, and kept alive rather than scrapped and replaced every 3 years. Sustainability isn't just about what you drive, it's about how often you replace it. A well-loved old Volvo, still going strong, has arguably done its bit. And finally, the biggest myth of all: classic car ownership is stressful. It can be frustrating, yes, but stressful. Only if you fight it. Once you accept that a classic car operates on its own schedule, something shifts. You stop rushing, you listen more, you plan better. In a strange way, these old machines teach you to slow down, and that might be their greatest gift. So maybe classic cars aren't impractical relics after all. Maybe they're reminders that not everything needs to be fast, perfect, or efficient to be worth keeping around. There's a lot of talk these days about electric cars. They're sleek, they're quick, they're silent. A bit too silent, if you ask me. And every week someone asks me, so are you getting an EV yet? And every week I give the same answer: eventually, but not yet, not for the moment. Because here's the thing, I quite like a car that sounds like a car. I'm not ready for something that hums quietly like a very patient washing machine. When I press the start button, I still want a little drama, maybe a grumble, maybe a cough, maybe a gentle reminder that pistons are doing something vaguely heroic under the bonnet. My friend's Tesla starts with all the emotional expression of a smartphone waking up from a nap. Is it efficient? Absolutely. Is it thrilling? Only if your definition of excitement is watching a battery percentage climb. Another reason I'm holding off is that I know myself far too well. If I owned an EV today, I'd be checking the range every 8 minutes. I'd become the kind of person who says things like, we can go to the shops, but only if we turn the heater off and drive like a monk. Some people get range anxiety. I'd get range melodrama. And then there's charging. I know it's improving. I know by the time I do buy an EV, it'll probably be seamless. But right now, I still enjoy the simplicity of filling up a tank in 90 seconds. Meanwhile, my friend with a Nissan Leaf spends his life sizing up car parks, like he's hunting for rare Pokemon. Oh look, a charger. Oh wait, it's broken. Oh wait, someone parked a diesel in the space. Oh wait, the charger works, but only when the moon is in the correct phase. I'm not emotionally ready for that kind of quest-based motoring. And then there's just the honesty of it. I like old cars. I like the smells. I like the quirks. I like turning a key instead of pressing a button that makes the dashboard light up like a Christmas tree. When I drive my old Porsche or even a scruffy 90s hatchback, there's a sense of connection, a little mechanical handshake between me and the machine. It's messy, imperfect, wonderfully analog. EVs are brilliant at many things, but messy and imperfect is not their design philosophy. Don't get me wrong, electrics are impressive. The Taycan is basically a spaceship that decided to go to Tesco. The Kia EV6 looks like it was designed by someone who loves triangles. And the Tesla Model 3, well, it's a very efficient way to feel like you're driving a minimalist Scandinavian cupboard. One day I'll get one. I genuinely believe electric cars will be part of my future. But for the moment, just for the moment, I'm staying with the rumbling, slightly leaky, occasionally dramatic world of classic and combustion powered cars, not because EVs are bad, but because I'm not quite ready to give up the noise, the character, and, if I'm being honest, the joy of a car that communicates constantly, even if some of that communication is help. My gasket's gone again. So yes, I'll join the electric revolution eventually. But right now, I'm enjoying the long, noisy goodbye. There's a strange calm that lives inside every classic car. It's not obvious at first. In fact, it's often hidden beneath rattles, warm oil smells, and the quiet suspicion that something electrical might be having a bad day. But once you spend enough time with an old car, you start to notice it, a kind of calm you don't really find anywhere else. Modern cars are very good at helping you forget you're driving. They insulate you, smooth everything out, and quietly take control, which is impressive, but it also means your mind stays busy elsewhere. In a classic car, that doesn't happen. Whether it's an old Porsche, a slightly dramatic Alfa, or a charmingly unpredictable Citroën, the car keeps you present. You feel the road through the wheel. You hear the engine thinking out loud. You're part of the process. And that's where the calm starts, because when you're paying attention to something real and mechanical, your thoughts stop racing ahead. You're not worrying about tomorrow's to-do list while guiding an old BMW through a corner or waiting for a carbureted engine to warm up properly. The car gently insists that you stay right here, not in a forceful way, just enough to bring you back. There's also comfort in the honesty of it all. Classic cars don't pretend to be perfect. A Land Rover will tell you exactly how it feels about potholes. A classic Mini will remind you that speed is optional and enthusiasm is not. Even something elegant like a Jaguar has no problem letting you know when it's had enough for the day. And somehow that honesty is soothing. You stop expecting perfection. You stop rushing. You adapt. And then there's the pace. Old cars move through the world differently. They're not in a hurry. And once you accept that, neither are you. You take longer routes. You leave earlier. You arrive calmer. Even a short drive starts to feel like a small event rather than a task to be completed. It's funny, we often talk about classic cars as stressful, temperamental things, and yes, they can be. But inside that unpredictability is a kind of quiet agreement. If you treat the car gently, it will do the same for you. It teaches you to listen, to ease off, to respond rather than react. So maybe the calm inside a classic car isn't something built into the dashboard or hidden under the bonnet. Maybe it's what happens when a machine slows you down just enough to notice where you are, what you're doing, and how good it feels to be fully there. And in a world that's always rushing forward, that kind of calm is quietly priceless. This car comes from a fascinating era in automotive history, an era before reliability was invented, not discovered, not perfected, invented. Back then, manufacturers weren't asking, will this start every morning for 10 years? They were asking far more important questions like, does it feel alive? Does it sound interesting? And can we make this with slightly thinner metal to save a few francs? And honestly, I respect that. I am not talking about a specific car. I am talking about cars from this period, whether it's a Citroën, an Alfa Romeo, a Triumph, or something equally optimistic. These cars were built with a very different philosophy. They weren't designed to be invisible appliances. They were experiences. Occasionally unforgettable ones. Occasionally unforgettable for the wrong reason. You see, modern cars are very good at not involving you. They isolate you from noise, vibration, effort, and responsibility. Old cars do the opposite. They involve you in everything. Every vibration is feedback. Every smell is information. Every new noise is a conversation starter. Take a French classic, for example. A DS21 doesn't break down. It expresses itself. The suspension isn't leaking. It's redistributing hydraulic enthusiasm. The electrics aren't faulty. They're simply having a philosophical disagreement. British cars, of course, have their own charm. A Triumph or an MG doesn't fail. It reminds you that optimism is an essential part of ownership. You don't turn the key expecting certainty. You turn it hoping today is a good day. And when it starts, you feel like you've earned it. Italian cars are even more honest. An Alfa will tell you exactly how it's feeling, usually loudly and at